to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, the Bangko Sentral orders e-wallets to unlink from online gambling platforms as the Senate mulls several bills aimed to regulating or banning online gambling. As flood control projects come under scrutiny, calls mount for an immediate suspension of ongoing and planned dredging works pending comprehensive technical audits. We get insights from former DPWH Secretary Rogelio Babes Singson. And President Marcos directs relevant agencies to study the request of public transport groups for a 1 peso fare hike for public utility jeepneys. E-wallets have until Sunday to remove icons and links directing to online gambling sites. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has issued this directive as the Senate held yesterday, Thursday, its first hearing in online gambling. The BSP says the directive covers all e-wallets and online banking services, as well as BSP-supervised institutions. The order stands until the central bank finalizes its policy in online gambling. Despite this, e-wallets can be used as payment methods for bettors directly accessing online gambling sites. Meanwhile, some senators question why it will take e-wallets 48 hours to unlink e-gambling access. The central bank said app users need time to withdraw their bets.
I just don't get it, Mr. Chairman. It is not acceptable yung answer bakit kailangan ng 48 hours. We wanted to protect the public eh. Namamatay na nga yung mga tao eh.
Ba't kinakailan pa ng 48 hours? Ba't kinakailan palugit para marami pang pwedeng tumaya? Para meron pang mga kukuha ng porsyento sa mga taya na yun?
We want to give time to the BSP supervised institutions to take down those in-app links and icons to the online gambling sites. The other reason, Your Honor, is so that we will also provide time for the customers, for the consumers, to withdraw their funds from the online gaming account once they learn that we are already removing the links from the BSI mobile payment applications and websites, Mr. Chair. So within that time.
In a statement, Maya has assured compliance to the order. It says accounts and transactions remain safe and operational. Maya and Signal, the owner of this channel, are both part of the MVP group. Meanwhile, GCash also assured compliance, saying access to gaming via its GLive feature will be paused starting Saturday, 8 p.m. But for Senator Rodante Marcoleta, he says PAGCOR should be questioned since they are the regulators. PAGCOR officials insist it has done its job of overseeing e-gaming, even as they admit that over 60% of websites, or about 11,000, are illegal.
Kasi ang PAGCOR po ang merong regulatory powers dito eh. Bakit hindi sila yung mauna na mag-regulate? Bakit po yung GCash ang dinidiin natin? Parang nakikita ko, we're all barking on the wrong tree. I just made the suggestion this morning, but I did not expect na sila yung gigisahin natin. Hindi po sila yung operator eh.
Sa bilis po talaga ng trajectory or naging exponential po yung growth, eh magtatapat po kami na talagang naghahabol din kami. Kaya po ito'y isang magandang pagkakataon para ang PAGCOR po ay makita at maanalisa kung ano pa po ang mga pwedeng gawin para po mas maging parehas, para po ang regulasyon ay maging maayos nang sa ganun ay hindi nga malulunaman ang ating mga kababayan dito sa pag-patronize ng online gaming.
Naniniwala ang PAGCOR na malaki ang maitutulong ng industriya sa bansa. Una, marami itong naibibigay na trabaho sa mga Pilipino at higit sa minimum wage ang kanilang naiuuwi sa kanilang mga pamilya.
Malacanang says over 1,000 reports have been filed on President Marcos's flood control complaint website just 3 days after its launch. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said that the Sumbong sa Pangulo website had received 1,148 reports 823 feedback entries and over 84,000 views from August 11 to 13. On Monday, Marcos revealed over 6,000 flood control projects launched since July 2022, totaling over 350 billion pesos. The president stressed these findings are preliminary and no accusations have been made. Senator Ping Lacson told Storycon the website is helpful and could link projects to lawmakers and officials even if they did not sign contracts.
May mga gusto makipag-ugnayan, nangingi lang na assurance na kami ba kung magsasalita at sasabihin namin kung sino yung congressman, all the way ba ito? So maganda rin itong challenge kay Pangulo. Ang laking tulong nga sa amin ng website niya eh. Kasi isipin mo, yung grid coordinates, eksakto. So I'd like to think, and I believe na si President Bongbong gusto niya ring ma-resolve ito. Legacy niya na pinag-uusapan dito eh.
Meanwhile, in an interview with The Big Story, Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Mangalong called for a credible institution like the NBI or CIDG to lead the probe, citing distrust in Congress's handling. This after he claimed he has information linking 67 congressmen to alleged kickbacks from flood control projects.
I'm not very optimistic. And I don't trust the way they're doing it. Unang-una, kaya nga matagal eh. Kasi nga, hindi naman investigation yung ginagawa nila. Grandstanding yung ginagawa nila. Pera ng taong bayan yan. Bakit hindi kayo transparent? Bakit nagiging defensive kaagad sila? Nagtatakipang kaagad sila?
Our guest who used to helm up the DPWH during the Aquino administration says ensuring that all flood control and dredging projects are tightly aligned to the River Basin Master Plan is central to fighting corruption. With us now for more is former DPWH Secretary Rogelio Babes Singson. Good to see you again, Babes. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, viewers.
Okay, so you're one of several voices urging an immediate suspension of the ongoing and planned dredging works, pending the comprehensive technical audits. Why specifically the dredging projects?
Well, to start with, Karen, I think the President fully now understands what he is trying to pursue is what we refer to as the integrated water resources management. No? So flood control is a major component, but there are other components of that. We refer to it as the IWRM, Integrated Water Resources Management, which means you conserve the water upstream or the rainwater so you don't let it flow in the river during a rainfall event to reduce the flooding downstream, and at the same time use it for irrigation, use it for water treatment, which the country badly needs, no, in terms of sustainable water supply. And at the same time, increase productivity of our farmlands by using it during the dry season. So the President is, I understand, is pursuing that, and that's why he's trying to address one of the major sources of corruption, which is the flood control dredging.
So it is just one, but then you mentioned of an integrated ecosystem there. So presumably there are other parts of that ecosystem that need to be checked out.
That's right. But to start with, let's reduce the corruption so that it goes to the proper component of the River Basin Master Plan.
But we don't have a master plan. I mean, we do have several master plans across the country.
Sorry, Karen.
That master plan has yet to come to fruition.
Sorry, Cathy, we have 18 master plans for all major rivers in the country, which we finished in 2016. Unfortunately, nobody touched that. No? So now the President is aware, and DPWH is trying to implement components of that. No? They're pursuing upgrading it, in fact, because of the major rainfall events that happened in the last few months, which is very progressive, no? Masyadong maraming ulan compared to the past years, no? So what needs to be done is for the money, substantial amount of money. You will be surprised if I tell you the numbers. Let's start, no? My full 6 years terms in DPWH, for flood control, I only spent 182 billion. Look at the 2025 budget with the insertion. The total for 1 year is 350 billion, just for 1 year. I'm saying I spent 182 billion for 6 years. Where did all this 350 billion go?
Where did it go, you think? I mean, you've been the DPWH
Dredging.
secretary before, and you are a civil engineer, so you must...
Dredging. Dredging is where it went because who watches the number of hakot ng putik dyan, no? Whether it is basura, putik, and you cannot address a river basin based on political jurisdiction. It has to be systematic. You start from the mouth, going upstream. Hindi pwedeng sa gitna ka mag-uumpisa. Pagdating ng ulan sa susunod, andyan yung putik sa ibabaw, umakyat sa iyo, pumunta sa jurisdiction mo, hakot ka na naman the following year. Tuloy-tuloy yan, bulsahan na katakot-takot ang nangyayari sa dredging. That's why I'm suggesting suspend all dredging projects. Let's have a review whether this is part of the component of the river basin so that we are able to use it properly.
Well, official directives have so far focused on more operational overhaul, bringing work in-house with the DPWH itself. This is something that they announced a couple of weeks back, rather than private contractors conducting these activities. Don't you think these operational changes would make a difference in purging corruption in the absence of a blanket pause?
No, but let's face it, Karen. If our district engineers all over the country have jurisdiction, I believe about 100 million projects, they can approve it. So what they do is china-chap-chap yung project so that it doesn't go to the regional, it doesn't go to the head office. That's one. District engineer is very, very vulnerable and at the mercy of the congressman. If the congressman is not happy, papapalitan yan district engineer at saka yung kanyang contractors hindi makakuha ng project, tatanggalin yan district engineer.
So Malacanang earlier said it's looking beyond flood control projects. Sa iyong nakikita, ano dapat suriin ngayon apart from the flood control projects that involves dredging?
You have to go. There is already collaboration between DPWH and National Irrigation Administration. NIA has to start doing more impounding upstream the river basins so that the amount of rainfall you conserve and you don't let it flow on the limited capacity of the flood of the rivers. So NIA has to do more water impounding in several areas along the river basin. This has been proven. Singapore is doing it, Malaysia, all the other countries, it's retarding rainfall. That's important.
So pwede na siyang gawin, irrespective of any investigations that may happen, whether it be dredging in the flood control projects?
Yeah, I believe DPWH and NIA are already starting to work together in terms of identifying where in these major river basins should NIA or DPWH start doing water impounding or improving the carrying capacity of these river systems.
Pero yun nga, no, once, for instance, if Malacanang does suggest a halting of these projects, what specific indicators can we go by when auditing comes? The audit criteria should really be used to distinguish what is legitimate and what is used.
I think as Senator Ping Lacson used to do this, and I hope he continues doing this. The line agencies, particularly DPWH, submits to Congress what is referred to as national expenditure budget. Okay? For example, in 2025, the DPWH submitted 850 or 890 billion pesos as its national expenditure program. It goes to the Congress, lower house, Senate, bicameral, you name it, and then comes the General Appropriations Act. From 890 billion, it went up to 1.1 trillion. All of that is what we refer to as congressional insertions. Walang programa yan, kani-kanila yan. So where is that money going to go? A big chunk of that is not going to go to projects. Mayor Magalong already mentioned as much, it's only 30% that goes to actual projects. The rest goes to pockets, including the margin of the contractor that is designated.
Sabi nga ni Mayor Magalong, hindi siya optimistic, ano, na walang hangganan, wala ring mararating yung sumbong sa Pangulo. But what is your view, babes?
No, let's not shut up. Let's not be complicit. Let's speak up. We have to stop this corruption. Kawawa naman ng taong bayan. Talagang mahiya naman sila.
All right, we'll leave it there. That is a loud and clear insight from you, Sec Babes. Thank you so much for joining us. Secretary Rogelio Babe Singson, the former DPWH Secretary. Well, President Marcos has ordered his economic team to take a thorough look on fare hike proposals. The palace press officer, Claire Castro, said yesterday the president wants to determine whether the public can shoulder another fare increase. She assured public consultations would be made to ensure the decision will be balanced. Castro added that the Transportation Department has the discretion what the government can bargain to prevent such proposals to push through. She stressed fuel subsidies cannot be distributed right now as global oil prices haven't hit $80 a barrel. On Monday, transport groups Pasang Mazda, Altodap, and Acto filed a joint petition before the LTFRB seeking a 2 peso provisional fare increase for traditional and modern jeepneys. That's on top of their request to make permanent the 1 peso provisional increase that LTFRB granted in October 2023. If both granted, these raise the base fare for traditional jeepneys to 15 pesos and modern jeepneys to 19 pesos. You're watching Money Talks, coming right up. Active diversification in good times and bad. Marvin Pasto of Gulf Strategic Growth Fund joins us after the break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. In the U.S., an inflation gauge has risen to its fastest in 3 years, raising alarm bells over the impact of tariffs and a dilemma for the Federal Reserve. The Producer Price Index, which covers the cost of services and goods directly purchased from producers, climbed 1.1% in July. Analysts polled by Reuters only expected a rise of 0.2%. Economists said the stronger than expected producer inflation could suggest an imminent pickup in inflation as companies face price pressures for months over the on-again, off-again tariffs. The data complicates the picture for an anticipated rate cut at the Fed's next meeting in September. The wholesale inflation print could give the Fed leeway to continue its wait-and-see approach, according to analysts. U.S. markets ended Thursday's session nearly unchanged following a pickup in factory gate inflation. S&P 500 rose by less than 1/10%. Both the Dow and the Nasdaq fell by less than 1/10%. Benchmark 10-year Treasury yields ticked up to 4.292%, And gold prices declined to $3,335,000 per troy ounce. U.S. futures are a mixed bag after hours. The Dow is up 0.4%, S&P 500 rises by less than 0.1%, and the Nasdaq down by 0.1%. As for Asian markets, they're up in the first hour of trading this Friday. Australia's ASX 200 up by 0.25%. South Korea's Kospi advances by less than 0.1%, and Japan's Nikkei 225 climbs by 0.4%. The Nikkei is trading just as Japan announced its stronger than forecast second quarter GDP, expanding by 1.2% year on year, beating back the tariff headwinds. Jollibee Foods Corporation bounced back in the second quarter, posting record-high system-wide sales that helped offset flat first earnings growth. Jollibee Group's net income attributable to equity holders rose by over 5% to 3.2 billion pesos from April to June, reversing the first quarter decline. Its system-wide sales hit an all-time high of 114 billion pesos, up nearly 20% year on year. Jollibee Group CEO Ernesto Tanmantiong credited the momentum to stronger operational execution, while CFO Richard Shin pointed to growth in the coffee and tea segment, resilience in the Philippine business, and early signs of recovery in China. Philinvest Development Corp's earnings rose by more than a third in the first half, driven by double-digit profit growth across its banking, real estate, power, hospitality, and sugar businesses. FDC's net income attributable to equity holders grew 34% to 7 billion pesos from last year's 5.5 billion. FDC President and CEO Roda Huang said all business units contributed to the strong performance despite several challenges, noting that the group aims to sustain the momentum through the end of the year. Banking accounting for the largest share, contributing 49% of total revenues and other income. And Alliance Global Group's Inc. earnings surged in the first half, fueled by stronger real estate revenues and tourism-related businesses. AGI's net income rose 39% year-on-year to 19.2 billion pesos from January to June, as group revenues neared 101 billion pesos, boosted by one-time gains from the deconsolidation of its quick-service restaurant arm, Golden Arches Development Corp. AGI President and CEO Kevin Tan said the company benefited from a buoyant domestic economy despite global uncertainties, capitalizing on market opportunities to drive residential and retail sales as well as office take-up. Let's get a quick check on the Philippine market, see how the PSEI is opening up this Friday. It is higher by about 1/3%, 6,313. Profit-taking snapped the stock market's two-day winning streak, according to PhilStock's Financial. The local bourse ended Thursday's session lower by over 0.5%. The broader all-shares index also fell by over 0.5%, with sectoral gauges a mixed bag. As for the Philippine peso, it opens today weaker, 57.10 to the dollar. Peso closed yesterday a tad weaker at 56.945 against the greenback. As for the 10-year government bond yields, they've ticked down to 6.003% from the previous close of 6.106%. With us now for more is Marvin Fausto, President of Call Strategic Growth Fund. So good to see you again, Marvin. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Cathy. Good morning.
Okay, so your growth fund's 2 years and 7 months in, buffeted by just about all the event risks we can imagine, from the unprecedented uncertainties in tariff policy to escalations in the Middle East, midterm elections, slowing growth, and even slower inflation. So what's it been like managing your fund?
I must admit that it's really very challenging. You know, the volatilities in the market is really giving us a bit of excitement, as you see. So it's really very critical for us to really actively manage the fund, so that when these volatilities come in, we can step aside and try to do more strategic investments moving forward, Cathy.
Well, exactly what does that mean, active investing? That's pretty different from any of the funds out there.
Yes, active, well, in my experience, like equity funds, they say it's actively managed, but they're fully invested. What I'm saying is it's really the asset allocation is a critical component of returns. 70 to 80% of returns are coming from allocation, asset allocation. Now, when I say active, you move that allocation very quickly in during times where it favors you, where you believe it's going to favor you, or when you're going to manage the risk. So that's really very key in managing funds. Like for example, in our fund, we do movement of these investments very quickly, whether it's equities, whether it's bonds, whether it's actively changing stocks and bonds, and etc. So moving this actively doesn't really mean that you're just going to hold it for a long term. No, it really depends on the fundamentals, technicals, and a lot of things that's happening in the market today.
Right, so it's like a bit of playing offense during bullish trends and then going defense when it's pretty weak for the markets. Let's pull up CSG's historical returns and take a look, because the fund started in October 2023. So that was just as the world was coming to grips with the new normal post-COVID lockdowns. How difficult was it to beat the benchmark? I mean, that was just a sliver of a 0.5% return versus the more than 1.7% drop on the PSEI.
Yeah, that was in the when we just started in October 2023. But I think the full effect of our strategy came in 2024, even year to date. No, so as you can see the numbers, we have been outperforming the market consistently, and I think the active component of that strategy is really coming into play. Even since launch, we're up 9% versus the index only 1.68, and I think the critical component here is really managing the risk. And as you can see in the second and the other table there, the volatility, that actually represents the risk that the fund is taking relative to the stock market. As you can see, it's much, much lower. So the key to build wealth, we believe, is that you invest in investments that give you long-term return, but at the same time manage that risk, meaning lower that volatility. Because if it's too volatile, you're just not going to end up the same way as you started. You cannot accumulate wealth realistically if it is too volatile. So as much as possible, in our fund, the strategic growth, it's very strategic in terms of asset allocation, but reducing the volatility by moving the investments here and there.
All right, I get that, but how are you doing so far this year in the first 7 months? Are you still managing to outpace the benchmark or not?
Yes, that's right. We're up so far this year. Decently in the first half, as you can see, we're up 2.5% versus the market's negative 2.5%. So we're really up now about 5 to 6%, depending on where you are now. Like for example, today is going to be very different because there's a new stock that's going to be added to the index. So there's going to be a very exciting period again for the second half.
It is. We're waiting for that Santa rally as it is nearly the Burr months. Well, thank you so much. We'll get back and see how you do on your fund. Marvin Fausto of Call Strategic Growth Fund. Namaya has partnered with the Philippine Sports Commission to roll out a digital system for managing allowances and financial transactions for Filipino athletes and coaches. Under the Championing the Pinoy Athlete program, the initiative will enable cashless payments, automate allowance disbursements, and give national sports associations a more transparent way to track funds. The partnership also includes financial tools such as savings, credit, insurance, and investment options for athletes, coaches, and PSC employees. PSC says the goal is to improve governance while promoting financial stability beyond athletes' competitive careers. And before we go, Signal TV and DDB Philippines strike gold at the prestigious annual International Business Awards. Signal and DDB won the Communications Campaign of the Year sport category for their Fame Swap campaign. Launched on Independence Day last year, the campaign put the spotlight on the nation's sports heroes who proudly repped the Philippines in the Olympic Games in Paris in 2024. Seemed like yesterday when that happened. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. We're also streamed live on YouTube and on our Facebook channels. Have a great day ahead and a great weekend too.